Hey there, it's Chris from Good Roads. Welcome back. Bushings. Bushings are one of the least expensive components of a longboard or skateboard setup, and they affect so much of how your board rides. And that combination of low cost and high impact make these little chunks of bushings one of the best places that you can experiment with your setup, try different feels, and really get your board dialed in. And there are a ton of options out there. Different shapes, different diameters, and if you're riding reverse kingpin trucks, you've got even more options. And that means that bushings are a really cheap playground to start exploring. But I'm greedy. I want even more options. Can we take that huge selection of bushings that are available on the market and make it infinite? Can we have any crazy wild bushing that our little hearts dream up? Can we cast our own bushings at home? That is what we're going to find out in this video, so let's get to it. First, let's talk a little material science. If you want to skip the science and just learn how to make bushings, I'll put a timestamp in the description below. But honestly, I think this stuff is really interesting, and I think knowing it helps you make better parts. Bushings, and wheels for that matter, are made from polyurethane rubber, and there's two qualities of that rubber that we're concerned with as board sport peoples. The first is durometer, or duro. Durometer is a measure of how much force it takes to compress a material, or to put it simply, how hard it is. There are a couple measurements for this, but we're working on what's called the Shore A scale, which describes hardnesses ranging from a rubber band, all the way down at the bottom of the scale, to hard casters, way up towards the top of the scale. And urethane skate components like bushings or wheels usually sit somewhere between 70A and 100A on the shore hardness scale. So duro is how hard your bushing is, and the other quality of the urethane that we're concerned about is called rebound. And it can be hard to link a theoretical description of rebound to how it affects our boards, but let's take a stab at it. Rebound is usually measured in a controlled setup where you drop a steel ball of a known mass onto a sample of your material and see how high the ball bounces. Comparing the drop height to the height of the bounce allows you to calculate how much energy was absorbed by the material and how much energy was returned to the ball. This return of energy is critically important in bushings and wheels. It indicates the rate of compression of the urethane and the urethane's ability to store energy while in a compressed state. And what all this means in practical terms is the rebound of your bushings determines the snappiness of your turns. All other things being the same, bushings with a higher rebound will return to center faster after a turn, and bushings with a lower rebound will feel a little mushier and have a soft spot around the home position of the trucks. Now we want our bushings to have some amount of rebound, but just like durometer, there's a range, and finding the rebound that's right for you is mostly a matter of personal preference. I should mention, it's really hard to find material information anywhere on rebound. I've looked for rebound info on urethanes, resins, even some printer filaments, and it never seems to be included on the datasheet. Either rebound isn't that important outside of our little world of bushings and wheels, or I'm missing something. And if you know where I should be looking to try to find information on rebound, leave a comment below, it would be a huge help. So, now that we have some sense of what we're looking for in our material, in our urethane, we can get started making our bushings. And to do that, we're going to need a mold. I'm going to try to cast a full set of 4 bushings and make sort of a bushing ice tray. So I made a mold box that was wide, long, and deep enough to house all 4 of the bushings, plus a little extra in each of the dimensions. I cut the walls out of foam core and used a hot glue gun to assemble the box. Once the glue had cooled, I used a knife to kind of clean everything up. I used some more hot glue to tack the bushings down to the bottom of the box, and for the conical bushings I made sure the wide end was facing down, towards what's going to be the opening of the mold. Then I mixed my silicone. I'm using Smooth-On's Sort of Clear 37 silicone. I picked this one because I thought a clear mold would be kind of cool, but as you'll see, a silicone with a lower viscosity would have been a better choice. When this bottle runs out, I'm going to hunt down the lowest viscosity silicone I can find, and I don't care what color it is. It's way thicker than I expected, and mixing the parts together was harder than I thought it would be. The viscosity also meant that as I mixed, I was introducing a lot of bubbles, which can be a problem in a mold. I poured the silicone, trying my best to pour from as high as possible. This makes the stream of liquid really thin, and is supposed to help pop any bubbles, but you can see that in this case, it didn't really help that much. Once the silicone had cured, I removed the mold from the box. Then I used a knife to clean up the mold a bit and pulled the bushings out. And that's the mold finished. It's looking pretty good. Next, I measured and mixed my urethane. I'm using this Flexit 80 from Specialty Resins and Chemical. It's an 80A urethane that's mixed 1-to-1, which should make casting a little easier. And they also offer similar urethanes in 70 and 90A. I poured the liquid urethane, waited 2 hours for the cure to complete, and the urethane never set properly, ruining the mold and what was supposed to be a reusable mixing cup. I'll skip the suspense and just tell you what happened. You're supposed to use plastic or metal to stir urethane because urethane does not get along well with moisture, and any wooden stirring stick you might use will always have some amount of atmospheric water in it. The best plastic stir-like thing I had available was a sculpting tool, for clay. Well, it turns out there's this thing called cure inhibition that can happen in urethanes or silicones, where before they set up, they interact with certain chemicals and it causes them to not cure properly. And one of those chemicals is present in modeling clay, so some trace amount of clay on my stir caused my cure to fail. But not to worry, that just means it's time for round 2. So let's make another box and another mold. I stepped down the number of bushings in this mold to 2, so that this time around, if something went wrong, I wouldn't be wasting so much material. When my first attempt failed, I reached out to the urethane manufacturer to see if they had any tips, and they suggested I try heating the mold at 140 degrees Fahrenheit for about an hour before casting, so I gave that a shot. I discovered the issues around cure inhibition later, so I don't know if heating the mold really made a difference, but their customer service was very responsive and helpful, which I really appreciated. Anyway, I mixed a second batch of rubber. I found a small piece of aluminum flat bar down in the shop and cleaned it off with acetone, and I'm using that as a mixing stick. I'm not risking any clay getting in the way this time. The urethane I'm using has a working time of 4 minutes, and at this point I was worried that I might not have mixed the first batch thoroughly enough, so I took a full 2 minutes to mix the parts together, and I think that ended up being too long, because when I poured the urethane it got syrupy, and again wound up with a lot of bubbles in it. But I waited the 2 hours to see if we had another failure on our hands, or if things had worked out. And hey, look at that! I was able to demold the bushings easily, and it seemed like everything had set up. I trimmed off the flashing with a knife, and with that I had a finished set of bushings. Now, they're not perfect. You can see here there are a ton of bubbles in this set. That's not good. It's going to make the bushings soft and mushy. And a board needs 4 bushings, not 2, so I figured I would take a stab at a second set. This time, I added some urethane pigment I had from the snowboard sidewall experiments, and I made sure to only stir for about a minute, so the liquid urethane would still flow really well when I poured it into the mold. 2 hours later, I popped them out and cleaned them up. And while they're still not perfect, this is a definite improvement. The bubbles are smaller and there are less of them, and these bushings feel a lot firmer straight out of the mold. But now for the true test. Let's put them in a board. A while back I made a cruiser deck using a 3D printed mold. I'm going to put the bushings in that board and take it for a spin. Now because of all the bubbles in these bushings, they're going to be a lot softer than the spec'd 80A, especially the first set. You can see how smushed and compressed they get as I tighten the kingpin down, and how little resistance they have to the trucks. The second set worked out a lot better and feel a lot closer to real usable bushings. I made this additional purple set the same way that I made the green ones, but when it was time to do my test, they had kind of just come out of the mold and were still pretty soft. So I ended up not using them. It seems like they take a day to fully cure, and now that these have had that time, I definitely would swap them out for the white ones. I usually ride bushings that are harder than 80A, and last time I rode soft, loose trucks that I wasn't used to, I broke my arm. So I'm going to take it real easy on these, but let's get out there and see what the score is. Honestly, not bad. They really lend themselves to a super carvy, surfy style of riding. And I actually found them really easy and fun to pump. I did get speed wobbles at moderate speeds, but I think that has a lot more to do with me not being used to riding loose trucks than it has to do with the actual bushings themselves. But overall, they were pretty fun. And I think if I swapped the clear ones out for the purple ones, the ride would be more stable, and it might even be a good board for me to start learning how to ride looser trucks, softer bushings. Now, here's the rub. All of those issues with bubbles in the bushings and in the molds, I knew they were gonna happen. And I knew what effect they were gonna have as far as making the bushings soft. I wanted to see if we can make passable bushings without having to spend more than the cost of materials. And I'd say that was a success. You can make bushings in your kitchen without any crazy equipment. But while the way we cast the bushings in this video was easy, it's not really the right way to do it. To properly cast urethane rubber, you need a pressure pot. And I've already got one. So now that I've shown you how to make your own bushings in your kitchen, next I'm gonna break out the big guns and try to cast a perfect, solid, legit set of bushings with no bubbles. And that's coming up on the channel soon, along with a ton of other DIY board type projects, so subscribe if you haven't. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down below. I do my best to answer them, and until next time, I'll see you soon.